All right, welcome. Today, we're going to try and decode one of the world's most familiar yet kind of strange places. So get ready for a guide to what's shockingly normal in the United Kingdom. So yeah, a king with no real power, a government without a single rule book, how does a country like that even work? For most of us on the outside, the UK is a real puzzle. You've got all these ancient traditions, but they're running on rules that are modern, unwritten, and frankly, pretty baffling. So let's unpack some of the most shockingly normal things about it. Okay, first up, let's talk about the very foundation of the state itself. You know, most countries, they have that one big important document that lays out all the rules, right? The Constitution. Well, the UK, yeah, not so much.
And this is the question that trips up pretty much everyone. I mean, you see the monarch, the castles, the crowns, all that ceremony. But the real power, it's somewhere else entirely. And the rulebook for that power isn't even in one place. So, seriously, how does that even work?
Well, the short answer is it just evolved. There was never this one big, dramatic revolution where they tore everything up and started from scratch. Instead, it was this really slow, centuries-long transfer of power. It all started way back in 1215 with the Magna Carta, which began to chip away at the monarch's absolute power. Then you fast forward to 1689, and the Bill of Rights pretty much made it crystal clear. Parliament was in charge. So today, the monarchy is this incredibly powerful symbol for sure. But the actual executive power? Oh, that sits firmly with the elected government and parliament.
And this really shows you the key difference. Now, think about the U.S. Constitution. It's a single, formal document created at one specific point in time. The U.K. system is the complete opposite. It's what's called uncodified. It's more like a living, breathing collection of laws, historical acts, and customs that have been built up over hundreds and hundreds of years. And what that means is it's actually incredibly flexible. It can adapt and change without going through the massive political headache of formal amendment.
And this quote just nails the whole idea, doesn't it? The system was never really seen as broken, so there was never that drastic need to write it all down in one big document. The rules were already there, just scattered across a bunch of different laws and traditions. And when you put them all together, they do the same job as a formal constitution. It's a system built on compromise, not some big dramatic revolution.
So if that first piece of the UK puzzle is already kind of blowing your mind a little, and you want to keep digging into these cultural quirks with us, now would be a great time to hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe share this with someone who thinks they know the UK. Trust me, we're just getting started.
All right, so we've talked about the unwritten rules of power. Now let's switch gears to an unwritten rule of social life. I'm talking about the single most common conversation you'll hear on any British street, the weather. To us outsiders, it can seem like a total obsession. But to the British, well, it's a fundamental part of life.
And this quote from The Guardian just hits the nail on the head, right? It perfectly captures that global stereotype. When you think of the UK, you probably picture gray skies, a bit of a chill, maybe a constant drizzle. And look, while that's not always true, that perception has had a huge impact on shaping the national identity.
I mean, even the language itself is full of these super specific words for the weather. Have you ever heard of mizzle? It's a mix of mist and drizzle. But it's not just a description, it's a whole mood. It just goes to show you the level of detail they pay to the atmosphere. It's kind of uniquely British.
And this obsession, it just bleeds right into their art. It becomes the backdrop for some of their greatest stories and paintings. Think about it. The oppressive drip, drip, drip in Dickens' Bleak House, the wild, passionate storms on the moors in Wuthering Heights, and even those beautiful, golden, hazy summers you see in paintings by artists like Samuel Palmer. The weather isn't just background noise. No way. It's a main character driving the entire mood of the story.
Okay, so if the weather is what sets the mood, what's the universal solution to, well, pretty much any and every situation you can think of? Yep, a nice cup of tea, of course.
You know, the journey of tea in Britain is actually incredible when you think about it. It started out back in the 1600s as this super expensive, almost medicinal drink just for the super rich. Then, by the 18th century, it became a status symbol for the growing middle class. But the real game changer was the 19th century. Prices dropped, and suddenly tea became the cheap, hot, sweet, caffeinated fuel for the entire Industrial Revolution. It literally powered millions of workers through these long, brutal shifts in factories and mines. And that legacy is still going strong. Today, the average annual tea supply for every single person in the UK is 1.9 kilograms. That is a staggering amount of tea. It really cements its place not just as a drink, but as a core part of the national identity.
And get this, making it is a total ritual. It's not just about dunking a tea bag in a mug of hot water. No, no. For a lot of people, there are very specific, proper steps. You've got to warm the teapot first, let it brew for just the right amount of time, add the milk, and oh yes, there are fierce debates about whether the milk goes in before or after the tea. It's a whole process, a small moment of order in the day.
Okay, this brings us to our final, and maybe the most famous British trait of all, that psychological armor known as the stiff upper lip.
And what's so fascinating about this is that it's not just a cultural stereotype. It actually has a name in psychology. It's called repressive coping. Basically, it's a defined tendency to actively push away unpleasant thoughts and feelings instead of dwelling on them.
And this connects perfectly directly to that famous phrase. Keeping a stiff upper lip is really just the common-sense folk wisdom version of repressive coping. It's that deep-seated cultural belief that when things get tough, the best thing you can do is just stay calm, be stoic, and carry on. But here's where it gets really interesting. There's a real scientific debate about this. The mainstream view in psychology today is that suppressing your emotions is unhealthy, that it'll just backfire on you. But there's an alternative theory, which suggests that in some situations it can actually be a good thing, that it can help build resilience, especially after something traumatic. And that idea, it lines up perfectly with that old British stiff upper lip idea.
So there you have it. From an unwritten rulebook for an entire country to a culture obsessed with the weather, a society fueled by tea, and a national psychology of emotional reserve, what seems completely strange to the rest of us is, well, just another Tuesday in the UK. And honestly, that's what makes it so endlessly fascinating.
All right, now it's your turn. We want to hear from you. What was the most shockingly normal thing you learned about the UK in this explainer? Drop it in the comments below. And hey, if you had fun with this, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who loves unraveling these kinds of cultural mysteries. Thanks for hanging out with us.